Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our Sports Tech Allstars podcast. We are back with episode 2 in our series focused on NGSC, the new global sports conference in Riyadh, where I just was a few weeks ago. And today I'm honored to bring you my fascinating conversation with somebody who's a genuine Hall of Famer, I guess is the best way to put it, from the sports and gaming world. Peter Moore, a lifelong Liverpool supporter who became the CEO of Liverpool SC. Peter has also previously served at Electronic Arts, where he was first president of eSports and then was the chief operating officer at the company. Before that, he was at Microsoft, where he headed the Xbox platform business. Before that, he was president and CEO of Sega of America, where he oversaw the launch of the Sega Dreamcast. He's also been a senior vice president of Reebok. So the man has done it all. More recently, he was part of the advisory team that acquired Wrexham AFC, a name that you might have heard that is climbing its way up the English footballing pyramid pretty quickly. He's also currently the owner of Santa Barbara Sky FC, a professional team in the USL Championship, and also more recently a minority owner of Polish team Wisla Krakow. We covered a lot in that conversation. His take on the evolving nature of sports fandom, on the intersection between gaming and sports and the cross learnings between the two, a conversation that I thoroughly enjoyed. Hope you do too. Here is my conversation with Peter Moore.
Peter, you've been at the heart of the intersection of gaming and esports for many years now, obviously. At Xbox, EA Sports, Sega, and on the sports side, Liverpool, and more recently, Wrexham and Wisla Krakow, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? So you've seen this connection evolve over time. How's that evolution been, and where do you see it headed?
Well, when I joined the industry, so I came out of Reebok in late 1998, knew nothing about games, and this was still an industry that was growing, that lacked respect from the greater population and from society. In fact, society blamed some of its ills on video games and video gamers. It was boys in their bedrooms. As graphics have evolved, as the technology at the back end, faster broadband, bigger hard drives have evolved, the world has evolved. And now we're pretty much all gamers, whether it's on our mobile phones, PCs, or consoles. So I've ridden that, and it's gone from physical media to digital media. And certainly in my days, which was a real journey through that evolution of games, still very much, I don't want to say boys in their bedrooms, but a male-dominated, teenage male-dominated. As our graphics got better and our storytelling as a result got better, we then started to compete very much with TV, movies, and music, got bigger as an industry.
Much bigger now.
Absolutely. And got the respect of the overall entertainment industry. We went from the back pages to the front pages. And certainly at my time, working at the ESA and E3 in Los Angeles really gave us a platform for getting that front page coverage of what games meant to this whole generation, millennials coming through, now Gen Z. And it went from a niche to a canyon, if you will. We're all gamers now. And listening yesterday to the Royal Highness, Excellencies, the ministers, and Saudi getting behind it in a way that I marveled, listen to them, when you've got people as positions of power in government like that. It took me back in my first few years in video games. I testified in front of the Senate in Washington, D.C. We were under attack as an industry. We were being blamed for school shootings, for violence, as I say, society's ills. And I was able to testify in the McCain-Lieberman hearings on entertainment. It wasn't just video games. It was music and music lyrics. And we had to defend ourselves. You had a generation that was, if you will, in control that never played games. Now it's different now. You can go into the Senate, Congress. Those are gamers. Those congressmen and women, those senators are gamers. They grew up with games. There's an understanding of the value of what video games are, the strategic intent it builds, the character building, teamwork, because we're now online and you have to, as we've seen here, work as a team. So all of that has come together during my relatively short career of 20 plus years in video games.
From the back pages to the front pages.
Exactly.
Well, absolutely well put. I want to stay on that crossover, the learnings, because there are things that gaming does incredibly well and then not so well. And similarly on the sports side, of course, sports has built incredible fandom properties. It's taken generations to do that, hundreds of years in some cases. Gaming is very nascent. At the same time, sports wants to tap into gaming's younger connection, right? So gaming wants to learn how to create that fandom, the fanaticism, and sports wants to learn how to tap into a youth audience. How does each learn from each other's playbook?
Well, let's call it the gateway drug I always thought to real sports was video games. So when in my previous life at EA Sports and the game formerly known as FIFA, we would do a lot of research each year. We were learning what our gamers were all about. And the mode called Ultimate Team really opened up our eyes and the eyes of real sports clubs, federations, and leagues as to how you could make a virtual fan a real fan. Yeah. And by that, I mean you play as Liverpool or Barcelona or as Bayern Munich, and you fall in love with those clubs. Young people, millions of young people, learning about the real game through the virtual game, learning about the rules, the strategy, the history, how games should be played, formations, who are your favorite players. Ultimate Team allowed you then to go find players, and it was almost a marketplace that was teaching you economics. And so as football clubs then were coming to us in their droves, leagues, the Premier League, Bundesliga, La Liga, Serie A, Ligue 1, Eredivisie.
Everybody had a FIFA league.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and so the e-Premier League, when I was
one, everybody has their eSports league. Yeah, of course.
Well, so and they realized that this was the way to get so the convergence and not making them separate, but converging them together was key. At Liverpool, I remember, with great pride, we had a young man who won the e-Premier League the first year in his Liverpool shirt, and there was a lot of pride for us as a football club, that we had that first virtual athlete winning that first virtual league. The lines are blurred. The glue is passion, emotion, teamwork, longing, all of that character building, strategy. If you talk to the esports game teams, they sit down, they build strategy, who goes in, what we're going to do. They scout their opponents, what the tendencies are. It's no different to the real game.
For sure. For example, for the fanaticism, we heard the eSports Nations League will come out next year, right? Isn't it?
Yes.
And maybe that'll help build that fandom as well. I mean, we're in Riyadh not by accident. The amount of money that the Saudi government, the BIF, and various bodies are putting into sports, into gaming is not insignificant. So from your perspective, how does Saudi convert this capital into influence, like really building a voice on the global stage in these sectors, in sports and gaming?
As we heard both yesterday and this morning, Saudi Arabia is the first country to have an esports strategy as part of its overall governmental strategy. In speaking with Ralph Reichart, the visionary behind all of this, last night at the esports arena, it's very much about, as Saudi Arabia opens its arms and its borders to the world, bringing in tourists, they see events like this very much part of that enticement to come in, bringing you younger audience. To recognize, and the stat that blew me away yesterday, 63% of the population is 30 or younger. Yeah. They're digital natives.
It's a big stat.
Yeah. I went, wow.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, and they're digital natives, they've grown up with video games. When I was at EA, we would look at FIFA stats and we could figure out where everybody was playing, what they were doing, what teams they were playing as. Saudi Arabia was one of the top 3 nations for engagement on 200 countries across the world that would somehow manage to play FIFA, and Saudi Arabia was top 3. And so I think that the recognition of that by powerful members of the government is revolutionary. And once you have the people that we saw on the stage yesterday talking effusively and positively about video game, it took me back. I was sat there thinking how difficult it was 25 years ago to talk to senators above me who were criticizing game, waste of time, breeds violence, and again, blaming us for society's ills. And there we were yesterday, and it was a breath of fresh air for me to hear. And these are young men, typically, that grew up all playing games. It was fascinating to hear them talk about giving each other banter about beating each other in EA Sports FC, for example. So I was refreshed, I was enthused, and it was really a breath of fresh air yesterday.
It is powerful to see it climb. You can see it climbing the priority list and going right to the top of the agenda.
Yeah.
I want to take a segue into sports business.
Yes.
The infusion of capital that we're seeing. We talked about capital, that's how the money is that's coming into sport and gaming, and we're seeing this across the board, whether it's private institutional capital, whether it's corporate capital. Now, in the sports business landscape, that means that sports IPs are getting more valuable and more transactions happening there. At the same time, you have to balance that with the loyal sports fan who's feeling maybe a bit more exploited and over monetized, and stop exploiting fans. There are movements in the UK and other places. How do you get that balance right? That's a key question. But if you're a new sports owner, what are the first 2-3 steps that you take? If you're Liverpool, if you're somebody else, how do I make sure that I don't alienate my core base?
It's difficult, and certainly at Liverpool, it was almost ground zero for the strategy we had to have. And I coined a phrase there. I was born in Liverpool. My first game at Liverpool was 1959. My dad took me. So It's a working class city still to this day, a very proud city that relishes its football teams, not only Liverpool, but Everton as well. So we've got 2 Premier League teams, Everton with a brand new £600 million stadium. And so you look at that and you look at this local heart that goes back 130 plus years with both teams. And there's a sense of, I don't want to call it an entitlement, but you born and bred in Liverpool, you want to go watch Liverpool and or Everton. Well, it's difficult. So this phrase I coined, local heart, global pulse, recognized primarily through television that we at Liverpool Football Club have attracted a global audience with our success going all the way back to the mid-60s, playing in Europe, 6-time European champions, 20 times First Division Premier League champions. And wherever I traveled during my tenure as CEO, no matter where it was in the world, there were Liverpool fans and droves. And so the challenge we were having, very quickly I understood, as I walked around the stadium, I'm hearing different languages, different accents. It's a global football club, which is amazing. But at the same time, that clashes with that local heart. So we had to balance that out. Things we would do is make tickets available for people that had what we call postcodes, local people, and make £9 tickets available for them. But at the same time, you want a global audience. It's big business, whether we like it or not. You see how much money Liverpool have spent. In particular, in the last few weeks, German players, French players,
eventually a Swedish player.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
But that's the fair point. The fans, if you want those players, that money has to come from somewhere.
It is always the challenge. And look, I grew up in a period where there was no football on television. Right. It was one game a year. It was the FA Cup final. The business model of sports and football then was money through the turnstiles. And maybe you sold some programs. And maybe you sold a pork pie and a weak cup of tea. That was the entire business model. The belief was if you put it on television, nobody would come to the stadium. Well, as we found out, nothing can be further from the truth. The televised element of it enticed people to want to have that experience. So now you have to have this balance. There's only 61,000 people on any given game that can walk through the turnstiles of Anfield. 600,000 would love to in any game. So you have to balance it all out. And the business is immense now, as you well know.
Looking forward, what are the big trends around sports innovation, sports investment that you see? What are the IPs that you think can be unlocked? Where is this money all going?
Well, brands, individual wealthy owners, all the things we see, investment companies, whether it's private equity, all look at live sports as this unicorn. Sports, there's nothing compared with it that brings people together, that has passion, emotion, engagement, that is multi-generational, from your dad and your granddad, as it is in my case. And I don't care what it is, movies, music, television, nothing fires up the gut like sports does. And that belief that no matter what's going on in our life, we've got Saturday afternoon, Chelsea are coming to Anfield, whatever it happens to be. And for 90 plus minutes, whatever we're worried about goes away. All we're worried about is scoring goals and making sure the other guys don't. And that brings us all together. And in a world today that has never been so divisive, and unfortunately, there's one thing that we can all agree on. Now, when we get in the stadium, we'll sing against each other and we've got our chats. Oh, totally. But we all agree it's a beautiful game, and it doesn't require a commentator. It doesn't require to understand the language. We can all watch it. This morning I'm in the gym. I'm watching the Portuguese league. I don't need the sound on. It's Nacional versus Sporting Lisbon. It's a good game. And I'm on the treadmill and watching it, and the drama as always. 1-0 to Sporting. They're defending for their lives in the last 5 minutes. It's always this immense emotional roller coaster that we all have every weekend and during the week with Champions League, whatever.
And that's not going anywhere. It'll always have that.
No.
Peter, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. Before I let you go, I have one last question quickly. This is how I always end my podcast. I want to know, with all that passion that you just described, what has been your favorite sporting moment?
Wow. I think and it's more recent, but we think back to going to Barcelona, losing 3-0 at Barcelona, capped by an incredible Messi free kick, which nobody, even Alisson Becker, isn't saving. But we played well there.
Yep.
And bringing them back to Anfield, all of a sudden, no Mohamed Salah, no Bobby Firmino, Andy Robertson goes off. How are we going to overcome? And this is still when away goals count double.
Mm-hmm.
So if Barcelona score a goal, we have to score 5. And Divock Origi gets an early one. Gini Wijnaldum gets 2. Corner taken quickly. Divock gets the 4th. And then we defend for our lives for the last 11 minutes. And somehow we beat the best team in the world, despite being behind 3-0. And we go on to win the Champions League.
A story of overcoming hurdles. Divock Origi, forever a legend in Liverpool.
Without Divock, there is no football, is what we would say. But Divock will always be a legend. The nicest guy.
Brilliant.
Key goals at key times. And, of course, scores in the final against Spurs as well. And just a super guy. There's so many Divock stories and a real fan favorite at Liverpool to this day.
I'm sure. Peter, thank you so much once again.
My pleasure. Thank you.